Some people get mocked once and it stops. Others get mocked once and somehow it becomes a pattern. Different room, different people, same role. The easy target. The one people interrupt. The one people joke about just for fun. The one people test. The one everyone feels a little too comfortable disrespecting. And here's the part that hurts the most. It's not always because you did anything wrong. Sometimes people are not responding to your words. They're responding to your signals. Your posture. Your hesitation. Your nervous laugh. Your need to explain yourself. Your fear of making things awkward. Your willingness to absorb disrespect just to keep the peace. And human beings are frighteningly quick at reading those signals. Psychology research has shown that people form strong social impressions from extremely brief observations, what researchers Nalini Ambeddy and Robert Rosenthal famously called thin slices of behavior. In other words, before you've even finished your sentence, people may already be deciding how safe it is to challenge you and how expensive it would be to disrespect you. That means this video is not about becoming aggressive. It's not about becoming fake. It's not about becoming alpha. And it's definitely not about turning into the loudest person in the room. It's about something far more powerful. Quiet authority. The kind of presence that says, I'm calm. I'm aware. I'm not here to impress you. And I'm not available for humiliation. Today, we're breaking down the psychology of why some people get targeted for mockery and how to stop sending the signals that invite it. Because once you understand the mechanism, you can change the pattern. Let's start with something important. Mockery is rarely just about humor. A lot of the time, it's about status testing. Not always consciously, not always maliciously, but socially, mockery often functions like a probe. It asks, can I say this and get away with it? Will this person push back? Will the group support me or them? This is one reason bullying researchers have long emphasized that bullying isn't just random meanness. In the work of psychologist Dan Alwius, one of the pioneers of bullying research, bullying is defined by 3 elements: intentional harm, repetition, and a power imbalance. That third part matters. Power imbalance. People are more likely to target someone they believe is less likely to retaliate, less likely to be defended, or more likely to collapse under pressure. And this doesn't only happen in schools. It happens in workplaces, friend groups, families, group chats, online spaces, even in dating. Mockery often survives because the group unconsciously accepts a script. One person performs dominance, another person performs submission, and everybody else watches. Psychologist Christina Salmavalli and her colleagues found that in group bullying dynamics there are often multiple roles besides the bully and the victim: assistants, reinforcers, outsiders, and defenders. That means ridicule is often socially maintained by the audience. That's why a person mocking you is not always the real problem. Sometimes the real problem is that the room has decided you're safe to joke about. And if that sounds brutal, good. Because once you see it clearly, you stop taking it so personally. A lot of people internalize mockery as proof that they're weak, inferior, or somehow fundamentally lacking. But many times, what's actually happening is much simpler. The group is reading your behavior as low risk to challenge. That is not your identity. That is a signal problem. And signal problems can be changed. So what signals make someone look targetable? Not ugliness. Not being nice. Not being introverted. It's more specific than that. Usually it's a cluster of cues that communicate one thing. I don't know how to hold my ground. That can show up as laughing when you've been disrespected, speaking too fast, smiling to smooth over tension, over-explaining yourself, apologizing when you haven't done anything wrong, looking away immediately, shrinking your body, asking for permission to take up normal space, trying too hard to be liked, reacting emotionally but not effectively. And here's the trap. Many of these behaviors come from anxiety, not weakness. But socially, they can be interpreted as weakness. That distinction matters. A person can be intelligent, kind, capable, and morally strong. But if their nervous system is broadcasting uncertainty, many people will read that uncertainty as an invitation. In psychology, this connects to impression formation, nonverbal behavior, and social hierarchy perception. A meta-analysis by Judith Hall, Eric Coates, and Leanne Smith-Lebeau found that people reliably use nonverbal cues, posture, gaze, facial expression, vocal behavior, interpersonal distance, to infer dominance and power. Think about that for a second. People are not only listening to what you say. They are scanning for whether your behavior matches someone who expects to be respected. And if your words say, "That's not okay," but your voice shakes, your eyes dart away, your shoulders collapse, and you immediately fill the silence with nervous explanation, the message gets diluted. This is why some people say the right words and still get ignored. Because in status-related interactions, congruence matters. Your verbal message and your nonverbal message need to agree. If they don't, people usually believe the nonverbal one. Now let's talk about the reaction that frustrates so many people. You get mocked. And instead of responding the way you imagined later in the shower, you freeze, or smile, or laugh, or say something weak, or try to be extra agreeable, or think of the perfect comeback 2 hours later. Why? Because mockery triggers threat. And when people feel threatened, they don't always fight. They might freeze, fawn, or become cognitively scrambled. This is where emotional regulation psychology matters. Research by James Gross, one of the leading scholars in emotion regulation, shows that how we respond to emotion depends a lot on when and how we regulate it. If you wait until you're fully hijacked, heart racing, face hot, mind blank, it becomes harder to respond strategically. That's why people under social threat often become reactive, not effective. And if this has happened to you repeatedly, there may be another layer: conditioning. Psychologist Martin Seligman's work on learned helplessness showed that when people repeatedly experience situations where they feel unable to change the outcome, they can start acting passive even when options become available later. Now, learned helplessness is a broad theory and real life is more nuanced than a single experiment, but the basic pattern is still useful. If you've been dismissed, laughed at, or socially overpowered enough times, you may start anticipating defeat before the interaction even begins. And anticipation changes behavior. You become guarded, too careful, too eager to avoid escalation, too grateful for scraps of approval. You start entering rooms trying not to be attacked instead of expecting to be treated normally. And ironically, that defensive posture can make you look even more vulnerable. So if you've been telling yourself, "Why can't I just act strong?" Here's the truth. Strength isn't usually blocked by lack of character. It's often blocked by a dysregulated nervous system and a rehearsed expectation of losing. The good news: both can be trained. Let's define the core idea of this video. Quiet authority is the ability to project calm, self-respecting stability under social pressure. Not loudness. Not intimidation. Not domination. Calm, self-respecting stability. And psychologically, quiet authority usually rests on 3 pillars. 1. Emotional regulation. You do not let somebody else's provocation control your nervous system. 2. Clear boundaries. You communicate verbally and behaviorally that disrespect has a cost. 3. Congruent nonverbal signals. Your posture, eye contact, pace, and tone support your message. That's it. And when those 3 align, something interesting happens. People stop seeing you as easy. Not because you became dangerous. Because you became inconvenient to target. That's a major shift. Mockery thrives on low resistance and high payoff. Quiet authority removes both. The payoff drops because you don't provide entertaining emotional chaos. The resistance rises because your boundaries are calm, clean, and visible. You're no longer a rewarding target. Here is one of the biggest mistakes people make when dealing with mockery. They focus on the perfect verbal comeback. But before language comes state. If your body is in panic, your words won't land. So step 1 is physiological. When somebody takes a shot at you, your first job is not to win the exchange. Your first job is to stop your body from broadcasting praise signals. That means, don't rush to fill the silence. Don't instantly laugh. Don't start explaining. Don't speed up. Don't shrink. Pause. Breathe. Lower the shoulders. Plant your feet. Let your face stay neutral for 1 extra second. That tiny pause changes everything. Why? Because it interrupts automatic submission behavior. There's also interesting research here on affect labeling, putting feelings into words. A study by Matthew Lieberman and colleagues found that labeling emotions can reduce amygdala activation and increase activity in regions associated with regulation. In simple terms, numbing what you feel can help you recover your brain. So internally you might silently say, anger, embarrassment, adrenaline, threat. Not out loud. Just enough to stop the feeling from owning you. And then you respond from choice, not shock. This is not a small skill. This is foundational. Because quiet authority is impossible if every rude comment hijacks your physiology. If you want a practical rule, use this. Never answer disrespect at the speed of your adrenaline. Answer 1 beat slower. That beat of slowness reads as control. And control reads as strength. Now let's talk body language carefully, without the fake internet nonsense. This is not about doing some cartoon dominance pose. It's about eliminating cues that signal uncertainty and replacing them with cues that communicate steadiness. Research on nonverbal communication and status perception consistently shows that people draw conclusions from posture, gaze, facial control, vocal tone, use of space, movement speed. So what does quiet authority look like in practice? Posture. Stand upright without stiffness. Chest open, shoulders down, chin level. Not puffed up, not collapsed. A collapsed posture often communicates discomfort, apology, or withdrawal. An overly puffed up posture can communicate insecurity disguised as bravado. Quiet authority sits in the middle. Grounded, not performative. Eye contact. Not staring someone down like a movie villain. Just enough steady contact to communicate. I heard that, I'm not rattled. People who instantly look away after being challenged often unintentionally signal retreat. Face. A neutral face is underrated. Many people grin reflexively when uncomfortable. That can be read as, this is okay. Even when it is. You don't need a hard face. You need a composed one. Voice. Slow it down. Drop the rush. Finish your sentence. A shaky, fast, high-pressure response often communicates social panic. A measured response communicates self-possession. And no, you do not need a naturally deep voice. You need a controlled voice. Movement. Avoid fidgeting, overnodding, or excessive hand-wringing. Stillness is one of the cleanest status signals available. Not frozen stillness. Intentional stillness. This is one reason people with quiet authority often seem powerful before they've said very much. Their body is not asking for permission. Now we get to words. And this is where many people go wrong in one of 2 directions. They become too soft. If you don't mind, I'd kind of appreciate it if maybe. Or they swing too far into aggression. Say that again and see what happens. Neither is quiet authority. What you want is assertiveness. In the classic assertiveness book You're Perfect Right by Robert Alberti and Michael Emmons, assertiveness is basically standing up for your rights while respecting the rights of others. That's a useful distinction. Assertiveness is not passivity and it's not hostility. It's clear, direct, and proportionate. Hear what that sounds like. Don't talk to me like that. If you have something to say it directly. That joke's getting old. Not doing this. Stay respectful. Let's keep it on topic. I'm going to stop you there. That's not accurate. You can disagree without being disrespectful. Notice what these have in common. They are short. People who feel socially shaky often overtalk. They justify. They explain. They make a legal case. But long defenses usually lower your status in the moment because they communicate one thing. You need the other person to understand, validate, or approve your boundary. You don't. A boundary is not a courtroom argument. It's a line. And one of the strongest communication principles in tense moments is this. The more disrespectful the other person becomes, the simpler your language should get. Not longer. Simpler. For example, if someone says, Relax, it was just a joke. Weak response. No, I know, I'm just saying sometimes it comes off kind of weird and I didn't really appreciate. Quiet authority response. Then tell better jokes. Or, then keep me out of it. Or in a professional setting. Joke or not, keep it respectful. Short. Clean. Finished. A lot of people fantasize about the perfect comeback. And sometimes, yes, a witty line can work. But in the psychology of status, a comeback is not always the highest form of power. Often the highest form of power is non-reactive clarity. Why? Because mockery usually seeks one of three rewards. Your embarrassment. Your emotional overreaction. The group's laughter at your expense. When you respond with grounded calm, you interfere with all three. You don't give them emotional chaos. You don't turn yourself into a spectacle. And you force the room to reevaluate the exchange. Sometimes the strongest move is not a joke back. It's a pause in a sentence like, "What exactly was the point of that? Say it plainly. Explain what's funny. Why are you comfortable saying that out loud?" These questions are powerful because they shift the burden. Instead of you defending yourself, they now have to defend their behavior. This is psychologically effective because a lot of mockery depends on speed and ambiguity. The aggressor wants to hide inside, "I was only joking." Calm questions pull the behavior into the light. Not dramatically. Not emotionally. Just clearly. And clarity makes low-level cruelty look worse than it did 5 seconds earlier. Remember Salmavalli's work on bullying roles. That idea matters here. Mockery often depends on an audience. So when you're dealing with disrespect, you're not only managing one person. You're managing the social frame. This means 3 important things. First, don't perform humiliation for the crowd. If someone is baiting you publicly, don't start begging for understanding or dumping emotion all over the room. That usually increases the social payoff for the aggressor. Second, recruit the room without pleading. A calm line like, "Let's act like adults," or "We're not doing that," can subtly align the rest of the group with basic standards. Third, build defenders before you need them. People who are consistently isolated are easier to target. This is not weakness. It's social reality. If there's a group where you're regularly undermined, school, work, community, build 1 or 2 solid alliances. Research on belonging and ostracism, including the work of Kip Williams, shows how deeply exclusion affects people. But the flip side is also true. Even one reliable ally can change how secure and supported you feel in a group. And that changes your signals. People who know they are not alone usually speak differently. Stand differently. Recover faster. So quiet authority is not just internal. It is also social. If a room repeatedly rewards your humiliation, stop trying to win that room with charm alone. Change the structure. Find support. Document behavior if needed. Escalate professionally if it's a workplace issue. Leave if the culture is rotten. Not every environment deserves your self-improvement arc. Now let's kill one bad idea before it ruins this whole conversation. The goal is not to look alpha. A lot of people, after being disrespected for too long, swing into a hyper-performative version of strength. They become louder, harder, more confrontational, more theatrical. They start trying to dominate every interaction. But fake dominance is easy to smell. And often it creates more conflict than respect. Real authority doesn't need to advertise itself every 30 seconds. In fact, when people are secure, they usually use less force, not more. That's one reason assertiveness training in psychology is different from aggression training. Assertiveness protects dignity without trampling others. Aggression tries to seize control through intimidation. And the irony is, chronic aggressiveness can actually signal fragility. It tells people you are easily provoked, easy to bait, easy to manipulate. Quiet authority is harder to manipulate because it is less needy. It doesn't need every person to like it. But it also doesn't need every conflict to become a war. That balance is what makes it powerful. Here's the deeper layer. You can learn posture. You can learn boundaries. You can learn verbal responses. But if deep down you still see yourself as the one who gets picked on, your old signals will leak back out under pressure. Psychologist Albert Bandura's work on self-efficacy is relevant here. Self-efficacy is your belief in your ability to handle situations and produce outcomes, and Bandura argued that the strongest source of self-efficacy is not positive thinking, it's mastery experiences. In plain English, confidence grows from evidence. You stop feeling like a target by collecting experiences where you handled yourself better than before. Not perfectly. Better. One calm pause. One clear sentence. One moment where you didn't laugh along. One situation where you held eye contact. One instance where you left instead of absorbing disrespect. That is how identity changes. Not through affirmations alone. Through proof. So after every interaction, ask, did I regulate faster? Did I stay concise? Did I hold the line? Did I avoid over-explaining? Did I act like someone who expects respect? If yes, good. That is a rep. And reps build presence. This is important because a lot of people wait to feel confident before acting differently. But behavior often comes first. Then confidence catches up. Let's make this practical. Here are a few scenarios and responses built around quiet authority. Scenario 1, a friend group keeps making you the punchline. You say something and someone instantly makes a joke at your expense. Response: yeah, we're not doing that every time I talk. Short, calm, no smile if you don't mean it. If they say, bro, relax. You say, I am relaxed, change the habit. That's strong because it doesn't accept their frame. Scenario 2, someone mocks you in a workplace meeting. They make a sarcastic comment to get a laugh. Response: if there's a concern, say it directly. Or, let's keep this professional. Simple, clean, no lecture. If they backpedal, I'm just joking. You say, noted, keep going. That line works because it signals you noticed the behavior, judged it, and moved on without surrendering the point. Scenario 3, someone repeatedly interrupts and talks over you. Response: I wasn't finished. Pause. Then continue speaking. No apology. No anger. Just continuation. This is one of the purest authority moves in existence. Scenario 4, someone uses teasing to test your boundaries early. This happens a lot in new groups. Response: careful, you don't know me well enough for that. That line is useful because it sets a boundary without sounding hysterical. Scenario 5, someone tries to humiliate you in front of others. Response: interesting choice to say that out loud. Or, you seem very comfortable being disrespectful. These lines force self-awareness into the moment. And remember, you do not need 10 lines. You need 3 or 4 that fit your personality. Rehearse does not mean fake. It means prepared. Athletes rehearse. Negotiators rehearse. People with stronger boundaries often rehearse too. Why should your dignity be the one thing you improvise badly? Here's another important truth. Quiet authority is not always verbal. Sometimes the strongest move is disengagement. If the person is committed to humiliating you, if the group is rewarding it, if the environment is unsafe, if you are being abused rather than teased, walk away. Documents. Report. Leave. Reduce access. Because not every social challenge is a moment for elegant psychological mastery. Some situations are simply toxic. And staying too long in degrading environments can damage your nervous system, your self-image, and your expectations of what relationships are supposed to feel like. Quiet authority includes the authority to say, I don't negotiate with disrespectful systems. That might mean changing friend groups, changing teams, changing jobs, changing how available you are to certain relatives, changing what gets access to your time. Boundaries are not only things you say. They are patterns you enforce. Now let's end on the deepest point. A lot of people secretly try to become so perfect, so witty, so impressive, so socially flawless that no one could ever mock them again. That goal will exhaust you. Because the world will always contain insecure people, status games, group cruelty, and cheap shots. The answer is not to become unmockable. The answer is to become unusable for mockery. That's different. You don't need to control whether people try you. You need to control what happens when they do. And when you master quiet authority, hear what changes. You stop rushing to defend your worth. You stop auditioning for basic respect. You stop smiling through things that degrade you. You stop panicking when tension enters the room. You stop treating your discomfort as evidence that you're weak. You stop assuming every social threat means you're losing. Instead, you become readable in a new way. Your body says, "I'm here." Your face says, "I noticed." Your tone says, "Choose wisely." And your behavior says, "If you want access to me, respect is the entry fee." That is what makes mockery lose momentum. Not because you crushed everyone with dominance, but because you removed the reward structure. You became calm where they expected anxiety, clear where they expected confusion, brief where they expected pleading, steady where they expected collapse. That is quiet authority. And it changes how people treat you because it changes what they believe will happen if they cross the line. So if you've been feeling like the easy target, remember this. You do not need to become louder. You do not need to become cruel. You do not need to become someone else. You need to become harder to move. Regulate your body. Slow your reactions. Fix the nonverbal leaks. Use shorter boundaries. Stop over-explaining. Build allies. Collect proof that you can handle pressure. And most of all, stop sending the world the message that your dignity is negotiable. Because the moment people sense that you believe you deserve respect, and that you're capable of enforcing that belief calmly, the social math starts to change. Not instantly, not magically, but measurably. And once it changes, you'll notice something powerful. The same kinds of people who once kept testing you start looking somewhere else. If this video helped you, subscribe to Wired Logic HQ for more deep dives into psychology, social dynamics, and mental self-mastery. Drop a comment below with one boundary phrase you're going to start using this week. And if you know someone who keeps getting talked over, mocked, or subtly disrespected, send them this video. Because sometimes the biggest life upgrade isn't becoming more impressive. It's becoming unmistakably self-respecting.